Hello, welcome back to the campfire where we unveil the shamanic odyssey. It is an honor to have your ear and to have you on this channel with me. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is a bit of a change of scenery if you haven't noticed. Where I am in the world in Cape Town in South Africa, the seasons are changing and it is becoming quite rainy outside. So I've had to move my practice indoors. And it is in this episode that I welcome you into my home and introduce you to all of my plants. So thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome if this is your first time. My name is Michaela. I am a shaman and I have created this channel to share insights and information and wisdom that has been passed down from my generations before me and from my ancestors to help guide and lead you back home to the fire inside your chest. Today's episode is about age. Age for me has always been quite an interesting topic of discussion. People are very much judged by their age and are very much categorized by their age. There's a very interesting understanding that us as human beings have towards age, and it's been very interesting to me coming into terms of that and sort of understanding what age means to me. The way that I understand age is not necessarily about the maturity level of someone or their level of consciousness in this world, but rather quite literally the years that they have existed on this planet. Whether you are 15, whether you are 7, whether you are 55, whether you are 100 years old, the age that you are and the wisdom you have is only determined by how open you've been in your life and how much you have experienced within that life. I have been in quite a few situations where I've watched elders in the space that they are in now know less about life and existence and nature and their surroundings than a 7-year-old. Only because of how limited they have become in their knowing. It's something that a very dear friend of mine mentioned to me while I was in Peru. His name is Mike. Mike, if you're watching, much love, my brother. But he mentioned something to me and it really stuck, was when you finish school, a lot of people tend to kind of give up on learning. They either were extremely traumatized by the schooling system and truly just don't want to learn anymore because of how rigid their idea of learning has become, or they finish school and they aren't being forced to learn. There's nothing more to be taught and therefore they're done. And what happens is they almost limit themselves in their own understanding and knowledge of the world. Our brains are muscles, and just like any other muscle in our body, they need to be trained, they need to be exercised, and it is only with constant learning and absorbing of information that we give our brains that opportunity to learn and to grow and to understand. And limiting ourselves to thinking we know everything and letting the ego guide us in that way has become a big issue for the generations above us, the elders, if you will, where they were taught a very specific, rigid way of thinking that was the only way, the right way. And we are blessed now where we are in our current state of living with the internet, with so many different ways of thinking, of understanding, of experimentation, that naturally our minds have exploded with questions, with curiosity, and to be able to fuel that and feed that curiosity is something that our inner child craves, and it's something that has only started recently. If you look at the older generations, now I'm saying probably like mid-70s up, it's very difficult for them to learn a new skill with technology because they never really experienced how intense technology can be, and this whole way of being that we're in now is very new. It's hasn't been around for that long. And, as we are evolving and adapting, so are they. But there is in that such an interesting comparison between how much you know versus how old you are versus how much experience you have gained during that time. And that's what this episode is about. It's about age, the experience of age, what age truly means, and the limitations you put on yourself by being identified by your age rather than by your being, by your mind. Yes, I might be 29, but from how much I have learned and from my ancestors and from the guidance I experience, my age isn't a number. It's more than that. It's a way of being. It's how you can live this life. And I think age is just another one of those constructs of time that have limited us in our belief system, in this societal norm. And it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter at all, whether you be 29, whether you be 50, whether you be 16. You are a human being experiencing life. You're experiencing it as your brain develops, as your body develops, as you grow, and as you transform, regardless of the age. And where people limit themselves in this, and a very common saying that people use is, oh, I'm too old to do X, Y, and Z, normally when it's to do with physical activity, or I can't do X, Y, and Z because I'm too old. That for me is a limitation that you've put on your mind. It's an excuse that you've given yourself to stop existing. As soon as you give yourself the limitation of time in your life and you give yourself an expiry date, your existence takes a very different turn. This vessel, this way of being, this life that we're living is all about movement. It's all about growth. It's all about self-love and looking after yourself so that you can last long, so that you can exist for a longer period of time. I was watching a show the other day about what is the secret to youth? And the secret to living a long life is looking after yourself, being consistent in your practices, being consistent in your exercise, in what you're fueling your body with, what you're consuming, how you're living each day, not stopping something because you're too old, not giving up on something because you feel that your life isn't what it used to be, but rather living in the life that you have and working with the cards you are being dealt. It is with this that I share with you how I personally have been experiencing life lately. As I had previously mentioned, I am 29 and I am turning 30 this year. Now, when it comes to this idea of age, I see it simply as a perspective of time. I can now, for the first time in my life, look back on a decade from 20 to 30 and consciously select the moments in my life that meant something to me. I can consciously go back in this past decade and be aware of time. Turning 30 and moving into this new decade, a lot has come up. And with each age that I have been experiencing since I've turned 20, I have been very conscious of the lesson that I've learned in each year. I see the numbers that age possess as a lesson in themselves. I find that the odd numbers are the lesson and a deep learning of that lesson, and the even numbers are the execution of that lesson. Once you've learned the lesson, how you can actually put it into your life. And it's a cycle that's shown itself again and again to me throughout my 20s, throughout this decade where I have been consciously aware of time, where I can personally go back and say every single decision that I made was one that I made. Yes, it might not have always been the right one, but I made it. I wasn't told what to do. I wasn't told how to do it, but rather I stepped into my independence, whether I chose to or not. And I can now comfortably look back at time, and it has shifted my perspective. It has given me an idea of how long it takes to do something, what I have chosen to become, what I've chosen to leave behind, and what I have created for myself in this decade. From 20 downwards, it was very much school years, it was very much a time where your parents were still molding you and helping you and protecting you in a lot of ways. So the decisions and the way of being wasn't necessarily my choice, but rather a choice made for me and guidance given to me from the most purest of hearts. It has always been a big part of my practice to keep the understanding that just as we work with the cards that we have been dealt, so do the people around us, our parents, our guides, the people who wouldn't have known better, but came from a place of love always. And it's now that I sit coming into my 30th year that I can look back at these years. I can look back at each year and what they taught me. A few examples of these, and it's something that I truly recommend doing, is just looking back at the last 5 years and just seeing in those last 5 years what lessons you learned, how they affected your life, and how it sort of changed your path. When I was 23, it was my first deep lesson about quality over quantity, with friendships, with setting boundaries, with learning who I want in my life and why. A large part of this episode is actually opening up a series of episodes where I will go deep into what each age taught me and the lesson that I learned from each age, and how those lessons are lessons that when you become conscious of them, you can actually see how they've affected your life, and you can actually go back and think about when that lesson was learned in your life. And it's something that I've mentioned before, and it's something that I will mention until the end of time, but you can only teach a lesson once you've learned it. And a large part of this channel and sharing this information with you is sharing the lessons I've learned to offer to you as teachings and guide you on a path that you might be uncertain of, a path that will hopefully, with my purest intentions, is to bring you back into balance with yourself, to help you understand that we're all going through the same thing. We're all experiencing different versions of each other, and it's through channels like this and expression and honesty that I give to you, the vulnerability that I will share with you, that you understand that you are not alone in what you're experiencing. You are not a victim to life. You are just growing. You are just learning. And it is in that that you find gratitude, that you find peace, and that you find solace. So with all of that being said, and with closing up the first part of this new chapter of age and how beautiful it is to step out of time and to observe your growth and celebrate this new perspective, I encourage you to take a moment to look back on your life. Look back at each year, what you learned in that year, what you experienced in that year, how it changed your perspective, always for the good. Even if it started out as bad, there is always a reason for the lesson you learned. The universe will keep sending you a lesson until you've learned it, to help you and guide you in your evolution in this life. So take these moments and take the time after watching this episode to go back. What did you experience? What did that experience teach you? How did you grow from it? And where it has brought you to now. With the episodes to come, this series will be about sharing what each age taught me to help you understand, not necessarily, oh my word, she was this age when she learned this lesson, why am I not learning that lesson yet? But rather, I'm learning a lesson and I'm sharing it with you, just as I hope you'll learn a lesson and share it with someone else. We are here to teach each other. We are here to guide each other, and we are here to hold each other, hold space for each other while we go on this rocky terrain of life and find our feet and find our balance. Each year that we exist brings us closer to ourselves. And before finishing off, I'd like to leave you with one last perspective shift, if I may. It's how I personally see the passage of time, but as we celebrate New Year's on the 1st of January every year, I always find my birthday to be my new year. And on this day, on my birthday every year, I take a moment with myself. I set new intentions for the year ahead. I take a moment to look back at what I've experienced and what I've learned in that year, and I celebrate my life. Birthdays are a celebration of life, a celebration of learning, of existing, and it's important to honor that, and it's important to give yourself that time with yourself. Celebrate the new year of existence, the time that you have on this planet, and honor that. So I encourage you to celebrate your new year on your birthday. Take a moment of reflection, watch your transformation, and realize how much happens in a year. What changed in that year, and how it brought you closer to you, and how it brought you onto the path that you are currently on. There is so much beauty in this life if we just take a moment to breathe, to celebrate, and to honor the magic of this existence. So with that, I celebrate you, I honor you, I thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll be posting more parts of the lessons that each age has taught and giving deeper insights into how those lessons have shifted my perspective and guided me onto the path that I am on now. I thank you for your time. Thank you for tuning in, and I wish you a blessed day. Bye-bye.